Bismillah. So, last time we talked about what is a letter. Okay? So we talked about that when I'm doing tajweed, what I'm actually doing is I'm looking at a letter on its own to actually how to properly pronounce it. How am I doing that? Well, I am actually describing the letter conceptually and transmit it to the next generations. How did our scholars phonetically characterize the science? Well, the way they did it is using these two things, right? They talked about a place of articulation and they talked about a property. So what did we say last time? We said a place of articulation is the physical parts of your mouth or throat or whatever that actually helps you emit the letter. So you say qa, qa, qa. So when I want to describe the letter qaf, what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to tell you what two physical parts, the tongue and the upper palate, which parts do I use to actually emit the sound? Okay? To actually emit the sound of the letter. That is the place of articulation. But as we said last class, that some letters actually have the same place of articulation. So I have the same place of articulation, but I do not uniquely identify the letter. Right? So we talked about the letters. What letters did we talk about? We talked about dhal, tha, and dhal. So what did we say with tha and dhal? Tha and dhal are two letters that come from the same place of articulation, the same physical parts. But at the same time, if it's coming from the same physical parts, then I actually never uniquely identified the letter fully. Because if the same letter have the same description, how is the letter sounding different? What did I do that's different that made the sound? So we said the tha and the dhal, they come from the tongue with the upper central incisors. So both these two letters, they come from the same place of articulation. Okay? So what do I do? Then the scholars talked about properties. The property that comes with tha is that tha and we're going to talk about properties today, it emits a lot of air. And we talked about that the best way to notice it is using the vocal cords. So we said the tha, if you try it, there's no vibration in the vocal cord. Dhal, what happens? You have vibrations. You can actually change between the letter and the other without changing your place of articulation, only changing the property. So the property with the place of articulation uniquely defines the letter. Uniquely defines the letter. And that's the power of phonetics. This is the power of the phonetics that our scholars defined. The power of phonetics that our scholars defined is how to uniquely define it, so later generations can actually know how to pronounce it. This is what we did last time. We talked about the place of articulation. We talked about an essential property. An essential property is a property in which if it is part of what the letter is. Essential property is part of what the actual letter is. By that if the essential property is removed, the letter, it does not exist anymore. And then we talked about transient property, which is a non-essential property, but when does it happen? We said it happens when two letters actually combine with each other. So we said all of tajweed, when people think about it, is actually here. Noon sakina. Min qabl. This min qabl. This sound, is it part of what noon actually is? No. Noon should be min qabl. Should be min qabl. What happened? When the noon comes with a qaf, a transient attribute happens. So it's not part of what the letter actually is. So we said you have the place of articulation, the physical parts, then you have properties. We said the essential property is a property that if the part of what the letter actually is, like the tha and the dhal, the vibration is part of the dhal. If I stop vibration, the letter goes away. So let's try it again. the letter stops existing. So it's not something added to the letter. It's part of what actually the letter is. Okay? And then you have the transit attribute. What are we going to do for the next couple of weeks? We're going to only talk about the essential properties for now. Then the rest of Tajweed is the transit. Mad. Mad is not part of what alif is. You don't say ya in Arabic. You don't say, like when you talk to someone, you don't, ya ayyuha. You just say ya ayyuha. So alif does not need to have mad. But in the Quran, we put mad for it. And that's why it's a transit attribute. Okay? Okay. So now what are we doing again? I have a letter which has a place for articulation, and I have properties, things that's part of the letter to actually emit the letter fully. Okay? Okay. Wait, why did it change? Okay. Okay. So, essential property. Essential property is a property that's part of the letter such that if it goes, the letter goes. Okay? Okay. So, what are the two types of essential properties? One that has opposite, one that has no opposite. What is that weird distinction? That's kind of stupid. Like, what do you mean, oh, one has opposite, one is... like, it's kind of stupid. The reason this distinction is made is that properties that have opposites say something about all letters. So what do I mean by that? We have two opposite attributes, okay? That means that if a single letter is not in this attribute, it has to be in the other one. It has to be. So these two pairs of attributes say something about the letter in general. So an example of that, like the dal and the tha, which is the first attribute we're going to talk about, but I'm mentioning it quickly. Air, no air. Obviously, I'm going to explain it way more later. So we can split all the Arabic letters between air, like a lot of air pushing out, and no air, like not a lot of air is pushed out. This is an opposite properties. Why are they opposite? Because every Arabic word, it's either here or there. Okay? It's either here or there. With properties that has no opposites, it's just a one-to-one, like, oh, this letter has this property. Okay. What about this letter? It doesn't even have a relationship with this at all. Right? So that's the difference. Okay? And when we go along the actual properties, you can see why this distinction is useful. Right? Okay. Now, essential properties with opposites. Just showing you this quickly. I'm not going to go through it because more words means more confusion. But this is what we're going to go through. We're going to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs with a guy in the middle. Okay? So I'm going to say it one more time. What are we doing? We finished place of articulation last semester. This semester, we're doing essential properties. Essential properties are not the place where it is something part of the letter that I need to describe and tell to actually emit the sound properly, like we said in the dal and the tha. Okay? We have properties with opposites, properties with no opposites. We're going to start with properties with opposites. Okay? Let's go. Yalla, bismillah. Okay. Again, we did some of this last semester, right? We did some of this last semester, but we're redoing it because we're going through properties again. Okay? So, bismillah. What is the first question? So every pair of, so we said that attributes that have pairs, right? Say something about the letter. So you can think about, so every single pair here, you can think about these two as asking a question. Does air flow? If yes, if yes, go here. If no, go here. This second one, ask another question. Does sound flow? Yes, no, and so on. So every pair actually answers a question that can be answered by yes or no. So here, in the dal and the tha, does air flow? If yes, it goes to 1. If no, it goes to the other. So what's the first question we want to tackle with letters? What is the first question we want to tackle? The first question is, does air flow? I gave you a lot of talking, so now let's slow down and let's actually understand. Okay. Does air flow? So, with the letter, let's try another example. Let's try sin and zay. We tried that and that. Let's try sin and zay. The sin and zay actually come from the same place of articulation. If you actually look, s and az come from, your tongue hits the same spot. As, I actually didn't move my tongue at all. I did something else. Air. Right? So again, the sin and the zay actually have the same place of articulation. So I need something to emit the new sound. If sin and zay come from the same place in mouth, what is that something else that I'm doing that creates the sound at the end? I'm doing airflow. So with sin, what happens? See, look here. S. So I'm pushing a lot of amount of air. Air is flowing. Okay? Another way to actually understand this, how this works, is the vocal cords. When the vocal cords open without vibration, not a lot of air goes out. When there is vibration in the vocal cords, all of the air is minimized. So let's try it with sin and zay. S. Try the vocal cords. Try to feel it. S. S. Now change to zay. Az. 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 So you notice that the difference between the two letters are actually the vibrations of the vocal cord, which causes what? Less air to flow in the zay. And if the vocal cords are open, there is more flow. So let's look at the picture here. Look. When the vocal cords are open, air flows. A lot of air flows. When the vocal cord is closed, a lot of the air does not flow. What happens with vibration is that it opens and closes, opens and closes, opens and closes. So not a lot of air flows. But when the vocal cord is completely open, a lot of the air flows. Does that make sense? So that's actually the first distinction between letters in terms of properties. Okay? So what is the definition? So let's talk, now after we explain the whole thing, let's actually talk about the definition. This is the technical stuff. You can ignore that, to be honest, but out of completion. What is hams? The abundant flow of air caused by the weak dependence on the place of articulation and the opening of the vocal cords. You can ignore the weak dependence part because we're going to explain it later. All I want you to focus on is the abundant flow of air caused by the opening of the vocal cord, causing a whisper sound. S. Now let's try another letter. F. F. Now try to focus on the vocal cords, focus on the flow of air. F. A lot of air is coming out. So now look at this. Look at this. We're going to create a new letter. Look at this. Fa. No air. No vocal cords. Right? Okay. What is the same place of articulation? Same place of articulation. But this time has air. No, sorry. Air, but no vocal cords. So has no air, but has vocal cords. Try to do it. Same place of articulation. What's the letter? V. Right? But we don't have V in the Arabic language. But if we did, what are we going to say? V comes from the makhraj of the fa with the property of jahr, which is the other property opposite of hams. So hams, what is hams? Air, no vocal cords. What is the opposite of it? No air, vocal cords. It's the same place of articulation. So that's why properties are important. I can describe where the letter is coming from, but that new thing that I'm adding is called a property. Does that make sense? So again, what are the letters of Hams? فحثه شخص سكت. F. All of them. Try the vocal cords with each one of them. F. F. My head has vibration, and we can talk about that one. Because I asked my sheikh. Ash. As. All of them, no vibration. And a lot of air is flowing. Okay? فحثه شخص سكت. Now, without these three things, you should be able to tell me if a letter has whisper or not on your own. Like, you don't need that, guy. You don't need this. Because I told you how they figured it out. Again, you need to remember, Tajweed is a scholarly science, not a narration. It is concocted. It was created by scholars. It was not riwayah. So you can technically use another phonetical system if you want. Right? But this is the riwayah that our scholars preserve the Arabic language through. Right? Okay. So what is Hams? Flow of air, so on and so forth. Okay. What's the opposite? It's literally the opposite. The previous one has abundant flow of air, imprisonment of most air. Opening of the vocal cord, vibration of the vocal cord. The other one, causing whisper in sound, causing clarity in sound. It's just the complete opposite. Okay? So does it make sense? What do I mean by properties with opposites? Remember that part? So what is a property with opposite? These properties, these pairs, say something about all the Arabic words. If an Arabic word, it's either here or there. It has to be in one of them. Right? And it generally answers a question. So the first question, what is the first question? Does air flow? And if it's yes, it's whisper. If it's no, then it's jahr, apparent. Halas? Okay. Make sense? Okay. Now, what is the second question? Second question is so important. And by the way, these are actually easy to figure out. When you actually really deep it and think about it, you can understand how did the scholars actually bring it about. Because this one is very clear. The question asks a very simple question. Does sound flow? You're like, what do you mean sound? It's a letter. And like, it's obviously sound flows. Like, a letter, sound flows. Is that true? So, now, let's look about letters with sukoon. And let's try sheen. Okay? Ash. Does sound flow? Yeah? Everybody agrees sound flows? Sound flows? Yeah? Let's do it. Sound. Sound is something everybody knows. Ash. Does sound flow? Yes. Is there any stoppage in sound? Yes. No. You said yes to both.
There's a stoppage though. Because it's stopped. It's just.
No, it's stop it. Like there is some change in the sound because the letter has to become sheen, because it's ash. But I'm saying, is there sound flowing? Like, is there something coming out continuously?
You hear it, yeah.
Yes.
Sound can be air or vocal cords or both.
Air is sound. If air flows, then sound flows. With every letter, right? But a letter can be flowing of air but not sound.
Not vocal cords.
Huh?
Not vocal cords.
Then it's not a letter, right? Like what do you mean you're not using your vocal cords?
Would be just
Opening of the vocal cords.
yes, and then like not. It's not
That's vibration, but that's the previous.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You would say both are sound.
Oh yes, 100%.
Sound is both air or.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I would say I would say when the vocal cords are open, there's still sound proper.
Yeah.
I would not say it's completely just air.
Yeah.
And therefore, I would say sound. So like the distinction has to be still existing. Yeah. Yeah.
Does it mean that all letters that have air produce sound?
Yeah, because there's no like every letter has sound. So if you're not blocking the sound, you're not blocking the air. But there is a possibility of you blocking the air without blocking the sound. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
Like there's no way you can block the sound without blocking the air.
yeah, makes sense.
That's it.
But you can block the air.
Without blocking the sound.
Okay.
If you say there's no sound, then there's no letter. Do you see what I'm saying? If there's no vibrations, there's no sound waves. Huh?
So if it fits for both of these,
Ah, that's a good question.
why
Oh.
is it a question?
So the question is kind of come like that. Yeah. If you block the sound and the air, what are we doing?
You said the properties fit into two places, but the property itself fits into both. What's the point?
No.
What's the point of the question?
This is a new pair. We finished the first pair.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The first pair is does air exist?
Yeah,
Yes, no.
and then yes.
This is the new pair, the sound flow. Yes, no.
Okay.
And then there's a guy in the middle, but we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
So these are new pairs.
Okay, sorry.
Halas? Yeah, it's fine. Yeah? Okay. So with sheen, what happened? There's flow of sound. Okay? Now, kaf. Let's do sukun kaf. Ak. Ak. And do not give the last bit. Just stop. Ak. Nothing happens. The sound blocks. Khalas? So when the sound blocks, we call this letter shiddah, strength letter. When the letter flows, we call it rakhawa, softness. And again, there's a guy in the middle. We're going to come back to him. Okay? So, does sound flow? Yes, softness. No, strength. Shiddah, rakhawa. Simple. Why does sound flow? Why does sound block? Because there's actual in I think all of the letters, the actual physical parts of your body just literally blocks the sound. Here in the kaf, in the qaf. What happens? Vocal cords, waves here. We stop. It's literally blocked. Okay? So the sound actually blocks. Now again, I will talk about the strong dependence part. I'll explain the idea of strong dependence, but let's keep it later. Okay? But what is shiddah? The blockage of the flow of sound due to the strong dependence on the makhraj. We're going to explain that. AKA closing off the makhraj itself. You're literally closing off, the sound waves actually does not flow. You see? So what are the letters? Let's do ba. Ab. Ab. Without the qalqala. Ab. So what blocks? Your lips literally block the air. Does that make sense? Let's try the Jeem. You have a question, go.
So if you said before that you could have a sound with no vocal cords.
You have a sound with no vocal cords?
Is that what you
No. Like the vocal cords could be in the open position and sound still in no vibration of the vocal.
Okay, so there has, but then you said there could be no air in sound.
There could be no air and sound, yes.
Yeah, so then, but then that's physically blocking it. So how could there be the sound? Like what? How does that sound? What does that sound?
What do you have? I was confused about that.
What do you do? What do you do then?
No air and sound?
Yeah. 'Cause
No.
you-
I'm saying air is a medium. Air is still a medium because sound waves. But I'm saying you don't push air.
So with sound flow, meaning there's airflow, but if there's no sound, there's no airflow.
No. Like when I say ha, I'm literally pushing out sound from my chest, right? And sheen, I'm not doing from my chest, but I'm putting sound. With for example, let's make one that's very has no air, because most of them have a little bit of air. A V, لا واو, huh? As has a, but as you're not pushing air out. Z, but still, the existence of air is the medium throughout the sound flows, through which the sound flows. You see what I'm saying? So what I mean, there's no airflow. I mean, there's no air pushing out. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay, so when I say the sound flow, when the makhraj is blocked, خلاص, sound does not flow. Does that make sense? Okay. The pressure and the release from the lens. Okay. 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 Now let's ask a very important question. Very important. Why is it not? Okay. Very important question. Now I have a big predicament. Okay. How, if the letter is actually blocked, how do I say it? Like when I say kaf, do I say ak, and just stop? Or what do I actually do? K. K. What is k? Yeah, what is k? Obviously, I'm exaggerating. It should be a. What is k? What is that? Air. Oh. Is kaf part of the letters before? Is kaf part of the letters before? Let's look. Oh, it's right there. Okay, that's good. Okay. So I got it. Letters who block the sound, but I flow the air after, that's the way I do it. So letters who sound block, but they are part of the letters who air flow, how do I release? I release with air. Say ak, at. Does that make sense? I have a problem. Some letters, sound is blocked, and it's not in the air parts. So there's air is blocked as well. What do I do? So let's look. So, should the letters have two components? Some of them with air, like kaf and ta. So what do I do with those? I block, then release with air. Ak. So I'm doing both properties. I'm closing the makhraj, and then I'm releasing. Ak. Okay, what am I doing with this guy? Like qaf, what am I doing with qaf? Huh? Qalqala. That's why qalqala is necessary. Aqo. Why is qalqala necessary? Because the sound is blocked and there's no air to actually help me release. So I do qalqala. Then there's this guy. It's this guy. So kaf and ta, block first, release with air. حلو. قطب جد قلقل. That guy Hamza. Sama. You do it like that. As far as I know, obviously. Okay? The Arabs didn't like that. So different Arab dialect actually tried to run away from Hamza. So some Arab dialects, what did they say do? Rather than saying yu'minun, what did they used to say? Yu'minun. This is in other qira'at. In our qira'ah we say yu'minun. But in other dialects they say yu'minun. Some people say sama. Some qira'at say sama. That's it. In our qira'ah we have one of those guys. It's a'ajamiyun. The actual thing is two hamzas after each other. Our qira'ah, what do? We do something called tasheel. One of the last things we're going to talk about. But we kind of clip it. Not clip it even. We kind of So we say it fully. The second one is kind of and I'm going to explain later like how exactly to do it. So this is only in our Quran. We there's other places where we do this stuff in our Quran, but this is the main, like this is the clearest one. Okay. So Hamza, because of the difficulty of sound, it blocks the sound, and it does not have air to make it flow. So when you stop at it, you're like sama. You don't do sama, or you don't do qalqala. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of start, you don't say sama. Air, you don't do airflow. So what do you do? Some Arabs ran away with it. They say yu'minun rather than saying yu'minun. Okay? And every single move like that has a name, obviously, and has a whole explanation to it, right? But I'm just showing you the difficulty with Hamza. Okay? Does that make sense? Why did we do all of this again? Sound flow. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. Does sound flow? Yes. Okay, we're done. Okay. Okay. So all letters except the letters of shidda and the guys in between. And we're going to talk about the guys in between. Okay? What is sound flow? It's the complete flow of sounds when it passes through the POA. Okay, now let's actually talk a little bit about strong dependence on the place of articulation. Weak dependence on the, what is dependence on the, what is that? Let's focus through a little bit. Think about this for a little bit, okay? If the place of articulation does not block the thing, how does it actually affect the sound? So, for example, let's give an example. I don't have a good example here, unfortunately. Do I have a good example? No, I don't. Beautiful. Alhamdulillah. Okay. I'll try to. So let's focus with me here. Okay. This is the upper palate. This is the upper palate. How do we say ya? We took this last semester. I'll explain it. The middle of the tongue goes up close to the top of the mouth. So it goes something like this. Okay? Make sense? I want you to focus with me on this one, okay? Question. If the sound could just go like this, why does actual change in sound happen? Like what? Like it doesn't block. Exactly. Yeah. So if the sound, if the vibrations of the sound from the vocal cords could go like this, why does ya different from a? It's because the letter goes through the makhraj and causes pressure there. Okay, so here, the turbulence that happens to the waves as it passes through the makhraj determines the sound. And the reason I'm calling Hazm's point is because I didn't hear from my sheikh directly, but it's in my research, right? So it's Hazm's point. But I didn't hear from my sheikh directly. Most of the stuff is either from a reference book or I hear from the sheikh directly. And the more nitty-gritty, it'll be research. Okay? So the turbulence that happens here, as you go through the makhraj causes the sound. That means that letters that don't block have weak dependence on the makhraj. Because the makhraj determines the letter. That's where the idea of weak dependence comes from. Does that make sense? You can be lost here. That's not, it's like a little too much. You can ignore that part. But I'm just explaining to you when they say strong dependence on the makhraj. What does strong dependence mean? Means that the makhraj mostly determines the sound. So when you actually fully close the makhraj, then the makhraj completely determines the sound. Does that make sense? Huh? Somebody lost? Yeah?
So when you said the makhraj completely determines the sound itself, by that you mean let's see, it's the point of articulation is the only reason the sound's coming. There's no extra property.
Oh, no, there is properties. But I'm saying like it's the most important thing that determines the sound. Okay, completely is a bad word. I would say there is really strong dependence to determining the sound. Yeah. That's not what I meant. No, yeah. That's bad wording on my part, to be honest. Yeah.
So is yes weak or strong dependent?
I think you can say it's weak.
You can say or it is.
So in comparison to the shidda, it is weak.
Okay.
Okay? So that's why listen with this new information, Listen to the definition again. The complete flow of sound when it passes through. Through means that the fact that it's going through it and turbulence there causes the sound. And try it when you're doing yeah. Try it yeah. Ay, ay. Do you feel the turbulence? Now reduce the turbulence. The more the turbulence happens, the more you push your tongue up to cause more turbulence, the more ya is pronounced. The more you drop it, what happens? The more it's close to alif. Does that make sense? This is very nitty gritty. You can ignore this, okay? But this gives you intuition to how we actually to create the words. Khalas? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay.
So if there's more turbulence, the tongue is a little bit near the upper palate, does that mean we're going to experience more sound?
No. The determination of the sound to be closer to ya is going to increase.
Oh, yeah, if you raise the...
Yeah. Again, it's just a change of the sound to the letter that's related to the makhraj. Does that make sense?
Getting closer to the sound itself.
To the letter, yeah. I'm not increasing my volume or anything like that. What's the reason of the place of articulation?
To get the right
To get the sound, that's it. Alif is just, I want to get ya. So I'll just get my thing up and increase turbulence. Ay. Okay? Does that make sense? That's why you get ya fully, okay?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's review for one bit and we'll take 2 minutes break because to relax a little bit. What we did was, does air flow? Does yes, no. That's all we did. Then, does sound flow? Yes, no. When we said, does sound flow, and we said no, we had the problem of how do we get the sound out? And we fixed it in different ways. We fixed it with air, fixed it with, and we fixed it, and we didn't fix it. We just took the L with the Hamza. Or we ran away from it like the Arabs. Okay? Exactly. Okay? And then we talked about, does sound flow? And we said the answer is yes. And we explained how does the actual place of articulation genuinely affect the letter to actually get the sound out. Okay? Let's take 2 minutes break or something. Okay. Now, the partial one is the weirdest one. It's the weirdest one. Okay? What does that even mean? Yeah, well, so let's try it. Let's say N. Sound flows. Right? Right? Oh, wow. Sound flows. Right? So if sound flows in noon, why is it partial flow sound? Why is it partial? What is this? So let's actually, and that's why I explained the technical part of going through the makhraj. Let's start. So this, again, this be very clear. This from now, from here till I finish, the bayniya part is very theoretical. You can zone out. But it has a practical usage at the end. So you can zone out here and come to me at the end of the practical part, okay? But okay, so why is the noon and the meme partial flow of sound? Very simple. We talked in the makharij that the noon has what? Has a tongue part and has a nose part. So actually it's completely blocked from the mouth part. And from the nose part it's completely blocked. And Hazim, you're smart, very smart. If it's blocked from the mouth part, why do I need the mouth part? I'll just use my nose. So let's use my nose. That doesn't sound like noon. So I actually need the noon from the mouth part. I need the noon from but the noon from the mouth part is what? Completely blocked. And ما فيش. خلاص? So they are partial flow of sound because the flow of sound goes through the nose and completely blocked through the mouth. Okay, simple? Very good, very good. Okay, lam. Lam and ra is very technical. So why is the lam and ra partial flow sound? Let's look at the lam. Al question. Is the sound of the lam going through the makhraj? Around the makhraj. When you actually think about it, try to do lam, the sound does not actually go through. Remember when we talked about the rakhawa, when we talked about the flow, the sound flowing, we said it flows through the makhraj. When we talked about the whole turbulence thing, we said that these letters go through the makhraj. These ones do not go through; they actually go around. So, but what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that it goes around. But another problem is that the tongue intercepts the flow of sound, so it has to go around it. There is some level of blockage. To actually feel that level of blockage, if you can make your tongue big, widen it up, it actually blocks the sound completely. L, 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 L. Okay? It actually. So this partial blocking of the sound becomes complete blocking. Okay? What about the ra? The ra, we talked about it in the makharij. What happens is you make your tongue like the ear of a cat. It goes like this. And the sound flows. I'm not going to explain again the place of articulation of ra. We talked about it last semester. But the idea is that if your tongue doesn't, if it actually blocks, what is going to happen? Why? Block. Sound blocks. So the tip of the tongue intercepts most of the sound, except the gap created, causing partial flow. So again, without the gap created, what's going to happen? With the gap, that's the correct way of doing ra. So partial flow of sound. The sound is completely blocked, but I keep a small gap. And this gap, the air flows through. Okay? Make sense? I'm going through this part because it's mostly theoretical. Right? Okay. Ayn. Ayn is the most one I'm not the best. I'm not completely comfortable with. But the idea is ayn does not fully flow actually. It's actually the easiest one to understand, but yeah, I have problems with it. The idea is that, can you say ayn forever? Ah. You can fake it. You can say ah, but you're not withdrawing your epiglottis fully. Ah. Ya'malun. You cannot say ya. You can, but that's faking it, right? So the withdrawal of the epiglottis to the back of the tongue creates that partial flow sound. Again, I believe the place of articulation gets completely closed, but I didn't check that with the teacher. But I'm pretty sure it gets completely closed at the end. But still some asterisks there. Okay? So that's why it's a partial flow sound. Does that make sense? So the noon and the meme, why is it partial flow? The nose. خلاص? The lam and the ra. Okay? And the ayn, So what are the letters? Lin, Umar. These are the letters of in between. Okay? Why are we doing all this? يعني First of all, it's very important theoretically to distinguish between through and not through and so on and so forth, right? But there's one practical reason. Timings of letters. Okay, so bear with me. It's a little bit of concepts, but we'll do it as quickly as possible. Okay. We have voweled letters and we have non-voweled letters. What is the speed? So we talked about how to say fatha kasra dhamma. We talked about how to emit a letter. We talked about how to combine letters. How much time do I spend on each letter? So voweled letters, they have the same amount of times generally. I don't know why this, okay. Voweled letters have generally the same amount of time. So da is like ba. It should take the same amount of time. What are types of mistakes that happen when people elongate more than usual? Something like kuntum, people say kuntum, kuntum. No, it's kuntum. Or kuntum, kun immediately. Another problem is ikhtilas. The duration of the fatha kasra dhamma should actually take its full time. You have it. So it should be ja'alakum. What? So some people say ja'alakum. They eat it up. Ja'alakum. Ja'a. It should be ja'alakum. Ja'ala. People say ja'ala. Ja'ala. Eat it up. Again, this is technical mistakes, and that's why I'm going through them quickly. What's the idea? Don't worry about the details. What's the idea? The idea is you give the letter its time proper. If you give more, you sound like an idiot. If you give it less than it should be, you're eating it up. So you should give time to the vowel its proper time. Okay? Again, don't worry about all the details. Worry about the idea. Letters have their proper time. Give them their proper time. Do not reduce. Do not elongate. Make sense? Okay. What about sukoon? What about sukoon? Sukoon, the letters of Rakhawa takes the longest time. The letters of Bayniyya take the middle time. The letter of Shidda takes the shortest amount of time. What does that mean? Let's do it. The example I always use, because Ayman Suwaid uses it in the video, so I use it. Alam nashrah. This is a sheen. Forgive me. Okay. Okay. Nashrah. This is a ha as well. Laka sadrak. Okay. So we're talking about sukoon letters. Sukoon letters, right? Mim, that's sukoon. Sheen, that's sukoon. Ha, that's sukoon. Kaf, that's sukoon. Dal, that's sukoon. Okay? What are we doing again? How much time does it take to pronounce a sukoon letter? Again, how much time does it take to pronounce a sukoon letter? Okay. Mim, which part is it? Is it soft, strength, or between? Ma'al, between. Sheen, strong, strength, between. Sheen, is it soft letter? Is it a strong letter? Or is it a between letter? Soft, huh? Give it a shot. Soft. Ha. Huh? Soft. Okay. Obviously, these letters like ajit, qatan, back. Okay, letter. Dal. Hard. It's strength, but we SOS, whatever. Kaf. Very good. Ida, this is the first time people get it. Wow. People are focused. Okay. People generally don't get it. But anyway. Okay. So what am I going to do? I don't usually do well at this. But what properly I should do, I should give medium amount of time here, good amount of time here, small amount of time here. Okay? Alam nashrah laka sadrak. Okay? Alam nashrah laka sadrak. You see that? So I give the meme a bit of time, the sheen and the ha way more time, the dal and the kaf smallest amount of time. Does anybody do this? No. Are you supposed to do it? Yes. But what do you mean by supposed? You know, like Jordan Peters, what do you mean by supposed? We can argue what do we mean by supposed, okay? But you're supposed to do it, okay? So, alam nashrah laka sadrak. Okay? Now, what if I'm slower in recitation? Well, it's just give the same relative amount of time to every letter. So I'm writing really slow. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alam nashrah laka sadrak. So the meme in the on the slow recitation is bigger than the sheen of the fast one. That doesn't matter. All you have to worry is the relative time in your recitation. The relative time in your recitation. That's all you care about. So time is relative. And then you do that. Okay? So what's the longest amount of time? Soft letters. Middle, in between, shortest amount of time. Okay. I'll read Surah Al-Sharh. Hopefully, I'll try to do it. Okay? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So Sin is longest, Lam is short, Ra is short. I'll do it again. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ra, Lam, and Sin. These are the only sukoon ones, okay? Alam nashrah laka sadrak. I did it wrong, but we'll let it go. ووضعنا عنك وزرك. ووضعنا عين. Ain is what? In between. عنك, wiz, hard. Kaf is what? Hard. Right? ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك. الذي لام is in between. ظهرك is middle, ha is soft, kaf is hard, and so on. So you should actually be knowing which letters are hard and soft very quickly. Okay? Last thing, hard letters are أجد قطن بكت. أجد قطن بكت. We actually, I don't know why I never mentioned them. And the in between ones are Lin Umar. Lin Umar. Yeah.
When you have a leaden red,
Yeah.
the lam is with the shadda.
Yeah.
What do you do? Because it's supposed to be like a lam sukun and then a lam.
Yeah, exactly. So see, we should stop. So this is lam sukoon, and then lam fatha. So you pronounce it like this. الذي. You don't spend a lot of time because it is in between.
So when it's a double letter, then it's supposed to be like more than if it's
Oh yes.
like
So الشهر.
so when you, that's a good example. When you do sh and they're both sukun,
Same amount of time because they're from the same place.
they're both same amount of time,
Because they're both soft.
but shin is
Oh no, so ash without the fatha is the same amount of time as ha. But when you say asha, that small amount of time obviously is added.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Okay? Very good. Any questions, inshallah? Okay. Next time, inshallah, we're going to keep doing the pairs. Okay? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم guys.